Tonight, Nathan Cole stands outside the mansion of a woman he never thought he'd see again, the mother of his ex-girlfriend who left him years ago. In the pouring rain, instead of going to a blind date arranged by friends, he drives here, seeking a conversation with the only person who can understand the loneliness that's gnawing at him. But what begins as a conversation about pain will quickly turn into something far more dangerous, a forbidden relationship that could destroy everything they've built. Follow my story to the end, like and comment on the city you're viewing so I know how far this story has come. Part 1. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday night, turning Main Street into a river of broken reflections. Nathan Cole sat in his truck outside Rosie's diner, engine running, windshield wipers beating a rhythm that matched his racing heart. Through the steamed glass, he could see her, Jessica something, a friend of a friend, already seated at a booth, checking her phone every 30 seconds. This was supposed to be it. Another chance, another fresh start. Another woman who didn't know him, didn't know his history, didn't know that the man sitting across from her would be performing a careful pantomime of normalcy, while something fundamental inside him remained completely dead. Nathan's phone buzzed. Marcus again. You there yet? Don't bail on this one. Jess is great, real sweet, works at the hospital, loves kids. Nathan typed back. Running late. He deleted it, typed again. Traffic. Deleted that too. His thumb hovered over the screen. Then he just turned the phone face down on the passenger seat, where his son's Spider-Man backpack was crumpled against an empty juice box and a book about dinosaurs. Tommy was at Marcus's house tonight. Marcus and his wife Diane, they'd been pushing Nathan to get back out there for the past year. Like dating was some kind of physical therapy for a wound that wouldn't heal. Like enough dinners with nice women would somehow resurrect whatever part of Nathan had stopped working 7 years ago when Sarah Whitmore drove out of town and never looked back. The thing was, Nathan had tried. He'd really tried. There was Michelle last spring, kindergarten teacher, pretty smile, laughed at his jokes. 3 dates. He'd felt nothing. Then Andrea in the summer, worked at the library, brought him coffee the way he liked it, even got along great with Tommy. 5 dates, still nothing. Just this vast emptiness where feelings were supposed to be, like someone had scooped out his insides and left only the machinery running. Through the diner window, Jessica glanced at her phone again. She had kind eyes. Probably a kind person. She deserved better than what Nathan was about to do to her, which was show up, make conversation, smile at appropriate moments, and feel absolutely nothing while she tried to connect with the ghost of whoever he used to be. Nathan put the truck in reverse. He didn't think about where he was going. His hands just knew. Left onto Parkway, right on Sycamore, following the road as it wound up into the hills where the houses got bigger and farther apart. The rain was heavier up here, coming down so hard his wipers couldn't keep up. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the massive oak trees that lined the private drive leading to the Whitmore estate. He shouldn't be here. This was insane. But his truck kept moving forward, tires splashing through puddles, headlights cutting through the downpour until the house came into view. It wasn't a house. It was a goddamn mansion. Stone and glass and old money sprawling across perfectly manicured grounds that probably cost more to maintain than Nathan made in a year. The windows glowed warm against the storm, making the whole place look like something from a movie. Untouchable. Separate from the world where normal people lived and struggled and tried to glue their broken pieces back together. Nathan killed the engine. Sat there with rain hammering the roof. What the hell was he doing? Claire Whitmore didn't know him. They'd met exactly twice, once at Sarah's high school graduation when Nathan was 25 and stupid in love, and once at some charity thing Sarah had dragged him to right before everything fell apart. Both times, Claire had been exactly what you'd expect. Polished, distant, the kind of woman who ran a business empire and made it look effortless. She'd shaken his hand with the same detached courtesy she probably gave everyone who wasn't important enough to remember. And Sarah was her daughter. The girl Nathan had planned to marry. The girl who'd looked him in the eye 7 years ago and said she couldn't do this anymore. Couldn't be trapped in this small town with a baby and a mechanic when there was a whole world out there she hadn't seen yet. She'd left for New York 2 days later. Tommy was 6 months old. Nathan hadn't spoken to Sarah since. Hadn't spoken to Claire either. Why would he? They existed in completely different universes. Except 3 weeks ago, Nathan had been picking Tommy up from school when he'd seen Claire's Mercedes in the parking lot. She'd been there for some kind of board meeting, The Whitmore Foundation funded half the programs in the county. Nathan had watched her walk across the lot. This woman who moved like she owned every space she entered, and something about the set of her shoulders had looked wrong. Tired. Like she was carrying weight that didn't show. He'd thought about her on and off since then, which was stupid, meaningless. Just his brain finding new ways to avoid dealing with the actual emptiness in his life. But tonight, sitting outside a diner trying to convince himself to go perform normal human emotions for a stranger, the only honest impulse Nathan had felt in months was the one that brought him here. He got out of the truck. The rain soaked through his jacket immediately, cold water running down his neck as he jogged toward the covered entrance. There was a doorbell, probably played some classical music bullshit, but Nathan didn't press it. He just knocked, hard enough to hear over the storm. Nothing happened. He knocked again. The door opened. Claire Whitmore stood there in jeans and an oversized sweater, barefoot, hair pulled back in a messy knot. No makeup, no power suit. She looked younger than he remembered and more tired, and for a long moment she just stared at him like he might be a hallucination. "Nathan?" "Yeah." Water dripped off his nose. "I know this is weird. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Are you all right?" She stepped back, pulling the door wider. "Is something wrong with Tommy?" "No, Tommy's fine. This isn't about Tommy." Nathan stayed where he was, rain pooling at his feet. "I don't know why I'm here." Something shifted in Claire's expression, not quite a smile, more like recognition. "Come inside," she said quietly. "You're getting soaked." The entry hall was bigger than Nathan's entire house. Marble floors, curved staircase, some kind of chandelier that probably cost more than his truck. Everything perfect and cold and expensive. But Claire led him past all of it, through a doorway into what looked like a study. Dark wood, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather chairs arranged around a fireplace where actual flames were burning. "Sit," Claire said. "I'll get towels." Nathan sat, dripped water onto an antique rug that was definitely worth more than he made in 6 months. The fire crackled and hissed. Rain battered the windows. This whole thing was a mistake. He should leave. Make some excuse. Pretend he'd gotten lost, or... Claire came back with towels and 2 glasses of something amber. "Scotch," she said, handing him both. "You look like you need it." Nathan took the glass, took a long swallow. It burned going down, expensive and smooth. "I'm sorry for showing up like this." "Don't be." Claire settled into the chair across from him, curling her legs under her. She looked at him steadily, and Nathan had the unsettling feeling of being actually seen for the first time in years. "I haven't had unexpected company in longer than I can remember. It's almost refreshing." "Refreshing, right." Nathan rubbed the towel over his hair. "That's what people usually call it when someone they barely know shows up at their door during a thunderstorm." "We don't barely know each other." "We've met twice." 3 times, Claire corrected. "You're forgetting the hospital, when Tommy was born. Sarah called me at 2 in the morning, hysterical, and I drove down from Charlotte." She took a sip of her scotch. "You were in the waiting room. You looked terrified." Nathan remembered. He'd been 25 years old, sitting on a plastic chair while the girl he loved screamed in pain down the hall, realizing with absolute clarity that his entire life was about to change in ways he couldn't control or predict or prepare for. Claire had walked past him without stopping, and he'd been grateful. He hadn't wanted to talk to anyone. "I didn't think you'd remember that," he said. "I remember a lot of things." Claire's voice was quiet. "I remember thinking you were too young, both of you. I remember wishing Sarah had waited, had thought things through, had chosen differently." She met his eyes. "I was wrong. About you, anyway. You turned out to be exactly what she needed, even if she couldn't see it." The words hit Nathan harder than they should have. He looked down at his glass, watching the amber liquid catch the firelight. "She left," he said flatly. "So I guess I wasn't enough." She left because she was 20 years old and scared, and convinced the world would end if she didn't chase some fantasy life she'd built in her head. Claire's tone carried no judgment, just tired fact. "It had nothing to do with you being enough. You know that, right?" "Yeah." Nathan didn't answer. Couldn't. Because he'd spent 7 years telling himself exactly that. It wasn't about him. Sarah had her own demons. He'd done everything he could, but the knowing didn't fix the emptiness. Didn't make him feel less like a machine going through motions. "Why are you here, Nathan?" Claire asked. Not unkind. Just direct. "I was supposed to be on a date." The words came out rough. Another setup. Another nice woman who doesn't know me trying to figure out if I'm worth her time. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't sit there and pretend to be a person who feels things. Claire was quiet for a long moment. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. "I have a dinner tomorrow night," she said finally. "Business partners from Chicago. Very important, very strategic, very necessary for maintaining relationships that keep the whole empire running smoothly." She finished her scotch in one swallow. "I've been dreading it for weeks. The performance of it. Smiling and nodding and pretending I give a damn about quarterly projections and market expansion when all I really want is to be left alone." Nathan looked at her, really looked. This woman who ran companies, made decisions that affected thousands of employees, carried her family's legacy on her shoulders, and who sat here in an empty mansion wearing old jeans, drinking scotch, admitting to a stranger that she was just as tired of performing as he was. "How do you do it?" he asked. "Just keep going when everything feels—" He didn't have words for what everything felt like. "You mean when everything feels empty?" "Yeah." Claire leaned forward, elbows on her knees, glass dangling from her fingers. "You have Tommy. I imagine that helps." "It does." Nathan thought about his son. 7 years old, missing a front tooth, obsessed with dinosaurs, and convinced his dad was the strongest person in the world. He's the only thing that feels real anymore. But that also makes it worse somehow. Because I look at him and think about what kind of example I'm setting. This hollow version of his father who can't even manage to care about his own life. "You're here," Claire pointed out. "Instead of sleepwalking through another date you don't want. That's not hollow. That's honest. It's crazy. Showing up at your house in the middle of a storm is the most honest thing anyone's done around me in months." Claire stood, walked to the window, looked out at the rain-dark grounds. "Do you know what my day was like today?" Conference call at 6 a.m. with London. Board meeting at 9. Lunch with investors who spent 90 minutes explaining to me how I should run the companies my father built. Dinner alone at this table. She gestured vaguely toward somewhere in the house. Eating takeout while reviewing contracts. Then sitting in this study, drinking scotch, wondering if this is just what life is now. Beautiful house, successful career, everything I'm supposed to want, and feeling absolutely nothing about any of it. But she turned back to face him, backlit by the window, and Nathan saw something in her expression that mirrored exactly what he felt. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the sense of being trapped inside a life that looked fine from the outside but felt like suffocation. "So when you knocked on my door," Claire continued, soaking wet and brutally honest about not wanting to be somewhere else pretending to be someone you're not. "That was the first real moment I've had all week." Nathan didn't know what to say to that. They stood there in the firelit study while rain hammered the windows and something unspoken shifted between them. Recognition. Understanding. The sudden, dangerous intimacy of two people who'd both stopped pretending. "I should go," Nathan said, even though he didn't move. "Probably." Claire didn't move either. "Tommy's at a friend's house. I need to pick him up by 10. It's barely 8. Nathan checked his watch. She was right. He had time. Which was stupid to think about, because what was he going to do? Sit here drinking scotch with his ex-girlfriend's mother while the storm raged outside? This whole situation was absurd, but he sat back down. Claire refilled their glasses. "Tell me about Tommy," she said. "What's he like now?" So Nathan told her. About dinosaurs in first grade and the gap-toothed grin that could light up a room. About Tommy's obsession with facts. Did you know that a T-Rex bite was strong enough to crush a car? And his terrible jokes that Nathan always laughed at anyway. About parent-teacher conferences where the teacher said Tommy was bright and kind, but sometimes seemed sad in ways a 7-year-old shouldn't be. "He asks about his mother sometimes," Nathan admitted. "Not often, but when he does, I never know what to say. The truth is, I have no idea where Sarah is or what she's doing. She sends a card on his birthday. Sometimes. That's it." Claire's jaw tightened. I don't hear from her much either, maybe once every few months. She's in New York, dating some stockbroker, living exactly the life she thought she wanted. She paused. I don't think she's happy. A bit. Does it matter? The words came out harder than Nathan intended. Sorry, that's not fair. She's your daughter. She's also the woman who abandoned her son. Claire's voice was steel. Biology doesn't excuse that. I love Sarah, but I'm not blind to who she is or what she's done. Nathan studied her. This woman who'd built an empire, maintained impossible standards, projected absolute control, and who apparently had no problem calling out her own daughter's failures. It was unexpected. Most parents Nathan knew made excuses, found ways to justify or minimize. Claire just stated facts. You're different than I thought, he said. How did you think I was? Cold, distant, the kind of person who cared more about business than people. That's fairly accurate, actually. Claire smiled, but there was no humor in it. I spent 20 years building that version of myself. It's what the job required, what my father's legacy demanded. You can't run companies and make hard decisions if you let feelings get in the way. But it turns out you also can't have a life if you cut off everything that makes you human. She looked into the fire. My daughter barely speaks to me. My marriage ended in divorce when Sarah was 12. I have business associates, not friends. This house is beautiful and empty, and I'm very, very good at running companies while feeling absolutely nothing about any of it. The honesty of it hit Nathan in the chest. This wasn't some confession meant to manipulate or gain sympathy. It was just truth, stated plainly by someone who'd stopped seeing the point in lying. That's why you understood, Nathan said slowly. When I said I couldn't go through with the date, you knew exactly what I meant. Yes. They sat in silence. The fire crackled. Rain drummed against the windows. Nathan felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Not attraction exactly, though Claire was beautiful in a way he hadn't let himself notice before. It was more like connection. The recognition of finding someone else who understood what it meant to be hollow. This is going to sound strange, Claire said, breaking the silence. But would you like to stay for dinner? I have leftover Thai food that's actually quite good, and I realize we barely know each other, but I'd rather eat with someone who's honest about feeling empty than eat alone, pretending everything's fine. Nathan should say no. Should go pick up Tommy, go home, maintain the appropriate distance between himself and the mother of his ex-girlfriend. This was weird. Inappropriate. Definitely crossing some kind of line. Thai food sounds great, he said. Claire smiled, a real smile this time, reaching her eyes. Good, come on. She led him through the house to a kitchen that was bigger than most restaurants. Marble counters, professional-grade appliances, an island you could land a plane on. Claire pulled containers from the refrigerator while Nathan perched on a bar stool, watching her move around the space with the same efficiency she probably brought to boardrooms. You cook? He asked. Not really. I mean, I can, but I rarely do. She spooned pad thai onto plates. It's just me here most of the time. Cooking for one feels pathetic, so I order out and tell myself it's about convenience, not loneliness. I cook, Nathan said. Tommy won't eat anything that comes from a restaurant unless it's chicken nuggets. So I learned. Nothing fancy, but I can make spaghetti and meatballs, roast chicken, decent pancakes. The basics. Claire set a plate in front of him. That's more than basics. That's caring enough to feed your child real food. They ate at the kitchen island, rain still pounding outside, the massive house quiet around them. The food was good. Better than good. But Nathan barely tasted it. He was too aware of Claire beside him, the space between them, the strange intimacy of eating takeout together in an empty mansion while a storm raged outside. Can I ask you something? Claire said after a while. Sure, yes. Why did you really come here tonight? Nathan set down his fork. Considered lying, making something up that sounded less insane than the truth. But Claire had been nothing but honest with him. She deserved the same. Because you're the only person I could think of who might understand, he said. Everyone else in my life is either trying to fix me or telling me I should be over it by now. Move on. Find someone new. Get back to normal. And I keep trying. I do all the things I'm supposed to do, but nothing works. And I feel like I'm slowly disappearing into this routine where I'm just going through motions and nobody notices because the motions look fine from the outside. He paused, looking at her. But you run this massive empire. You're successful and powerful, and you have everything people are supposed to want. And I could see at that school parking lot that you were just as tired as I am, just as empty. So I thought maybe you'd understand what it feels like to be trapped inside a life that looks good, but feels like nothing. Claire was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft. I do understand, exactly. Yeah? Oh. Nathan, I'm 50 years old. 30, Nathan corrected. You were at Sarah's graduation. She's 27 now. That makes you 49 at most. 50 next month, but thank you. Claire smiled slightly. The point is, I've spent 3 decades building something my father started. Companies, investments, foundations. I've made decisions that affected thousands of people. I've done good work, important work, and I hate almost every minute of it. Nathan stared at her. Then why keep doing it? Because it's what I'm supposed to do, what my family expects, what all those employees depend on. I can't just walk away because I'm tired. She pushed food around on her plate. Besides, what would I do instead? I don't have hobbies. I don't have friends outside the business world. She gestured at the house around them. This is my life. It's just not much of one. The honesty of it was devastating. Nathan thought about his own life, working at Mike's garage, raising Tommy, going through the same routines day after day. It wasn't glamorous, wasn't impressive, but at least it was simple. Claire's prison was gilded, massive, impressive as hell. Still a prison. Sarah used to talk about you, Nathan said. When we first started dating, she made you sound like this unstoppable force, like you could do anything. That's what I wanted her to see. That's what I wanted everyone to see. Claire met his eyes. The reality is I'm very good at projecting confidence while feeling absolutely nothing inside. Turns out it's a useful skill in business, less useful in actually living. We're a pair, Nathan said quietly. Yes, we are, Shikte. Something passed between them in that moment. Understanding maybe, or just the relief of being seen. Nathan felt it in his chest, this loosening of something that had been wound tight for years, like he could finally breathe. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Everything okay? Jess said you never showed. Nathan typed back. Sorry. Emergency. Explain later. It wasn't a lie exactly. This felt like an emergency of some kind. A crisis of the quiet, desperate variety that didn't involve blood or broken bones but definitely required immediate attention. I should let you go, Claire said, watching him put the phone away. You have to get Tommy. I've got time. Nathan checked his watch. It's not even 9 yet. Still, I'm sure you have things to do, and I've probably bent your ear enough for one night. But she didn't get up, didn't move to clear the plates or walk him to the door. She just sat there, barefoot in her expensive kitchen, looking at him like she was trying to memorize something before it disappeared. Can I ask you something? Nathan said. Of course. Do you ever think about just walking away from all of it? The companies, the responsibilities, all the things you're supposed to care about, just starting over somewhere else. Claire laughed, but it was hollow. Every single day. But I won't. Because I'm not brave enough to disappoint everyone who depends on me being exactly who they expect me to be. No, that's not about bravery. That's about being trapped. Maybe, but at some point, there's no difference. She stood, started clearing plates. We make our choices, live with consequences. Pretend it's enough. Nathan stood too, helping her rinse dishes and load them into a dishwasher that probably cost more than his truck. They moved around each other easily, like they'd done this 100 times before, and Nathan realized he felt more comfortable here in this stranger's kitchen than he had anywhere in years. Thank you, he said, for letting me crash your evening, for not thinking I'm completely insane. Thank you for knocking on my door. Claire dried her hands on a towel, then hesitated. Nathan, would it be all right if you came back sometime? Not for any particular reason, just to talk. I realize that's strange to ask, but tonight was the first time in months I've had a real conversation with someone who wasn't trying to sell me something or get something from me. It was nice, human. Nathan should say no, should recognize this for what it was, the beginning of something complicated and potentially disastrous. Claire was Sarah's mother. There were boundaries, appropriate distances to maintain. I'd like that, he heard himself say. Claire smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine, and Nathan felt something crack open in his chest. Not attraction, not yet, just possibility. The first glimmer of feeling something other than emptiness. She walked him to the door. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, the storm moving east, leaving the night cool and clean-smelling. Nathan's truck sat in the circular drive, looking cheap and out of place against the mansion's perfect facade. "Drive safe," Claire said. "You know where I work. Mike's Auto Repair on 5th Street. If you ever need your car fixed, or if you just want to talk, stop by." I might do that. Nathan walked to his truck, feeling her eyes on him the whole way. When he reached the driver's door, he turned back. She was still standing there, framed in the warm light from inside, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable. Less like the powerful CEO everyone saw, and more like the lonely woman she'd admitted to being. "Claire?" "Yes?" "You're not as cold as you think you are." She didn't respond, just stood there watching as he climbed into his truck, started the engine, drove away down the oak-lined drive. In his rearview mirror, he could see her silhouette in the doorway until the trees swallowed her up. Nathan drove through the quiet streets, mind racing. What had just happened? He'd gone to that house on impulse, driven by loneliness and frustration and the inability to keep pretending. And he'd found what? Understanding, connection. The first real conversation he'd had in years with someone who actually saw him instead of the role he was supposed to play. But it was complicated, dangerous. Claire was Sarah's mother. Getting involved with her in any way beyond polite distance was asking for trouble. Except they weren't getting involved. They'd just had dinner, talked, found common ground in their mutual emptiness. That was all. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing to feel guilty about. So why did Nathan feel like he'd just stepped off a cliff? He pulled up outside Marcus and Diane's house at exactly 9:45. Marcus opened the door before Nathan could knock, Tommy already in pajamas and half asleep against Marcus's shoulder. "Hey, man?" Marcus transferred Tommy carefully to Nathan's arms. "Everything okay? You scared the hell out of Jess. She thought you'd been in an accident or something." "Sorry. I'll apologize to her." Something came up. What kind of something, but? Nathan looked down at his son, who was drooling slightly on his shoulder, completely trusting and innocent and dependent on Nathan being the stable, reliable father he needed. "Just something I had to deal with," Nathan said. "It's handled now." Marcus studied him. "You're being weird." "I'm always weird." "Weirder than usual, but okay." Marcus stepped back. "Diane wants to try setting you up with her cousin next month. I'm supposed to feel you out about it." "Tell Diane thank you, but I'm taking a break from setups for a while." "A while meaning I need to figure some things out first." Marcus frowned, but didn't push. "All right. Well, if you need to talk..." "I know, thanks." Nathan carried Tommy out to the truck, buckled him into the booster seat, drove home through streets still wet from the storm. Tommy woke up briefly when Nathan carried him inside, mumbled something about velociraptors, then fell back asleep as soon as his head hit the pillow. Nathan stood in the doorway of Tommy's room for a long time, watching his son sleep. This kid was his whole world, his reason for getting up every morning, for pushing through the emptiness, for trying to be better than he felt. Tommy deserved a father who was present, whole, capable of more than just going through motions. But standing there, Nathan realized something had shifted tonight. For the first time in 7 years, he'd felt something other than numbness. Sitting in Claire Whitmore's study, eating Thai food in her kitchen, talking honestly about loneliness and emptiness and being trapped, he'd felt alive, seen, human. It was dangerous, probably a mistake, definitely complicated, but it was something. Nathan pulled Tommy's door halfway closed, walked to his own room, lay down fully clothed on top of the covers. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Thank you for tonight. It meant more than you probably realize." Claire Nathan stared at the message. He should delete it, should maintain boundaries, should recognize that whatever had started tonight needed to stop before it became something neither of them could control. Instead, he saved her number. Thank you for letting me in. Literally and otherwise. He hit send before he could second guess it. 3 dots appeared immediately, showing she was typing. Then, if you need to escape another blind date, you know where to find me. Nathan smiled despite himself. Put the phone on his nightstand. Stared at the ceiling where shadows from the streetlight outside made patterns across the white paint. This was crazy. This was trouble. This was going to complicate everything. But for the first time in 7 years, Nathan Cole went to sleep feeling something other than empty. The morning after came too bright and too early. Nathan woke to Tommy jumping on his bed, still in dinosaur pajamas, shouting something about cereal and cartoons. Sunlight streamed through the window, making his head pound in a way that had nothing to do with the scotch, and everything to do with the fact that he'd barely slept. "Dad, you're still wearing your jeans," Tommy observed, bouncing harder. "Did you sleep in your clothes?" "Must have." Nathan sat up, rubbing his face. "What time is it?" 7:30. Can we have pancakes? "Yeah, buddy. Go pick out your clothes for school. I'll start breakfast." Tommy rocketed out of the room, all energy and noise, leaving Nathan alone with the previous night replaying in his head. Claire's study, the rain, Thai food in that massive kitchen. The way she'd looked at him when she admitted she was just as empty as he was. His phone sat on the nightstand. No new messages. Which was good, normal. This was just 2 lonely people who'd had an honest conversation. Nothing more. Nothing. Nathan hauled himself out of bed, started the coffee maker, mixed pancake batter while Tommy narrated an elaborate story about a T-Rex fighting a Triceratops in the living room. The routine of it was comforting, familiar. This was his real life. Making breakfast, packing lunches, getting his kid to school on time. Last night had been an anomaly. A weird blip that wouldn't happen again. Except he kept thinking about it. All through breakfast, while Tommy drowned his pancakes in syrup and asked questions Nathan only half heard. During the drive to school, watching his son's gap-toothed grin in the rearview mirror. Standing in the garage at work while Mike, his boss, rattled off the day's schedule. "You listening, Nathan?" Nathan blinked. Mike was staring at him, grease-stained rag in one hand, clipboard in the other. "Sorry. Yeah, what'd you say?" "I said we got 3 oil changes, a transmission rebuild on the Honda, and someone's dropping off a Mercedes this afternoon. Fancy one. Owner requested you specifically." Mike squinted at him. "You feeling all right? You look rough. Didn't sleep great. Marcus said you bailed on that date last night, the hospital girl." Small towns, everyone knew everything. Nathan grabbed a wrench from the tool bench, focused on the Chevy that needed new brake pads. "It didn't work out," he said flatly. "Didn't work out, or you didn't show up?" "Does it matter?" Mike sighed, that long-suffering sound he made when Nathan was being difficult. "Look, I get it. Sarah did a number on you. But you can't hide forever. Tommy needs to see his dad actually living, not just existing." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Tommy sees me just fine." He sees you going through motions. There's a difference. Mike softened his tone. "I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just saying you're 32. You got a lot of life left. Maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself for something that wasn't your fault." Nathan didn't answer, just crawled under the Chevy and let the work consume him. The familiar rhythm of it. Remove, replace, tighten, test. Problems that had solutions. Systems that made sense. Not like the mess inside his head. The morning passed in a blur of oil and metal and engines. Around 1 o'clock, Nathan was elbow-deep in the Honda's transmission when he heard tires on the gravel outside. Expensive tires. Quiet ones. He rolled out from under the car, wiping his hands on a rag, and froze. Claire's Mercedes sat in the bay entrance, black and sleek and completely out of place in Mike's rundown garage. And Claire herself was getting out of the driver's seat, wearing dark jeans and a cream sweater, sunglasses hiding her eyes. Mike whistled low. "That's the Mercedes. And that's... Holy hell, Nathan, is that Claire Whitmore?" "Yeah." Nathan's heart was doing something complicated in his chest. "You know Claire Whitmore?" "Apparently. Claire pulled off her sunglasses, spotted Nathan, and smiled. Not the polished CEO smile, the real one from last night. Hi, I hope I'm not interrupting. No, ma'am. Mike practically tripped over himself getting to her. Mike Patterson, I own the place. It's an honor, Ms. Whitmore. Real honor. We do some work for the Whitmore Foundation vehicles. Maintenance on the vans and... That's wonderful, Claire said smoothly, but her eyes stayed on Nathan. Actually, I'm here about my car. There's a noise. Something under the hood. Nathan offered to take a look. Mike's eyebrows shot up. Nathan did? Last night, Claire continued, completely unfazed. We ran into each other and I mentioned the noise. He said to bring it by. It was a complete lie. There'd been no mention of car trouble. But Claire delivered it with such casual confidence that Mike just nodded. Well, sure, absolutely. Nathan's our best mechanic. He'll get you sorted out. Mike was already backing away, probably planning to gossip about this for weeks. I'll be in the office if you need anything. He disappeared, leaving Nathan and Claire alone in the garage bay. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere in the back, a radio played classic rock too quietly to make out the words. There's no noise, is there? Nathan said. Not even a little. Claire leaned against her car, arms crossed, looking entirely too composed for someone who'd just lied to get into an auto shop. I needed an excuse to see you that wouldn't seem completely insane. So you drove across town and invented car trouble. Is that worse than showing up at someone's mansion in a thunderstorm? Fair point. Nathan tossed the rag onto a workbench. You could have just texted, Wolse. I could have, but I wanted to see you. Claire hesitated, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she looked uncertain. Is that all right? I know this is your workplace. If it's inappropriate, I can leave. Nathan should say yes, should maintain the distance, keep this from becoming whatever it was trying to become. But looking at her standing there in his world, this woman who ran empires, who could buy and sell this entire garage without thinking about it, looking nervous and human and real, he couldn't do it. Pop the hood, he said. Might as well make it look legitimate. Claire's smile could have lit up the whole garage. Nathan spent the next 20 minutes pretending to inspect an engine that ran perfectly, while Claire stood beside him asking questions that had nothing to do with cars. How's Tommy this morning? Hyper. Wanted pancakes. Asked why I slept in my clothes. What did you tell him? That I must have been tired. Nathan checked the oil level even though he knew it was fine. He didn't push it. 7-year-olds are easy that way. They take your word for things. Must be nice. Adults question everything. Yeah. Nathan straightened, wiping his hands. Speaking of which, why are you really here, Claire? She was quiet for a moment, watching him with those sharp eyes that seemed to see through every defense he tried to build. Because I woke up this morning feeling something I haven't felt in years, she said finally. Hope. Just a little. Like maybe I'm not as alone as I thought. And I wanted to make sure last night was real, that I didn't imagine the whole thing. The honesty of it hit Nathan square in the chest. He glanced toward the office where Mike was definitely watching through the window, pretending not to. It was real, Nathan said quietly, but I don't know what it means, or what we're doing. Neither do I. Maybe we don't have to figure it out right now. Claire touched his arm lightly, just for a second, but Nathan felt it everywhere. Can I see you again? Properly, I mean. Not fake car trouble or midnight storms, just dinner, conversation, whatever this is. Nathan knew what he should say, knew all the reasons this was complicated and messy and bound to end badly. Claire was Sarah's mother. She was rich and powerful and lived in a completely different world. People would talk. There would be consequences. But when he opened his mouth, different words came out. Tomorrow night, there's a diner on Route 9. Nothing fancy, but the food's good and nobody will bother us. Well, tomorrow night, Claire repeated, and the smile she gave him was worth every complication waiting down the road. She left a few minutes later, pulling out of the garage in that expensive car, and Nathan stood there watching until she disappeared around the corner. When he turned back, Mike was in the doorway of the office, arms crossed, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. You want to explain what the hell that was about? She had car trouble, so... Nathan, that woman did not have car trouble. That woman drove here specifically to see you. Mike walked closer, lowering his voice. Are you and Claire Whitmore? No, we're just friends. Friends. Mike looked skeptical. You're friends with one of the richest women in the state. It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated. But Mike was smiling. Look, I don't know what's going on, and honestly, I don't need to know. But I haven't seen you look like that in years. Like you're actually alive instead of just moving through the day. So whatever it is, just don't screw it up, all right? Nathan went back to work, but his mind was miles away. Tomorrow night. He had a date. Or not a date, because calling it a date made it real in a way that scared him. He had plans to see Claire again, to sit across from her and talk and feel that connection that had cracked something open inside him. The rest of the day dragged. Every car blurred into the next. Nathan picked up Tommy from school, listened to stories about recess and spelling tests, made spaghetti for dinner, and helped with homework that mostly involved drawing pictures of dinosaur families. Normal life. The routine that had carried him through 7 years of numbness. But something had changed. Nathan felt it in the way he laughed at Tommy's terrible jokes, in the way food actually tasted like something, in the way the evening didn't feel quite as heavy. Claire had done that. Just by existing, just by seeing him and admitting she felt the same emptiness. After Tommy went to bed, Nathan's phone buzzed. Thank you for tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it more than I probably should admit. See, Nathan smiled, typed back. Route 9 Diner, 7 p.m. Don't dress fancy. Place has plastic booths. Perfect. He put the phone down, poured himself a beer, sat on the back porch in the cool autumn air. Stars were visible tonight, scattered across the black sky like somebody had thrown diamonds. Nathan couldn't remember the last time he'd actually looked at stars. Couldn't remember the last time he'd felt anything worth remembering. His phone buzzed again. Marcus this time. Diane's pissed you stood up, her friend. I'm getting an earful. What happened? Nathan considered his options. He could lie, make up some emergency that sounded believable, or he could tell the truth, which was somehow both simpler and infinitely more complicated. Met someone else. Long story. I'll explain when I figure it out myself. Marcus's response came fast. Someone else? Who? When? Why didn't you say anything? Because it's new and weird, and I don't want to talk about it yet. Fine. But you're buying me a beer and telling me everything soon. Diane's going to have questions. Nathan didn't doubt it. Small town meant everyone would have questions eventually. But that was a problem for future Nathan. Right now, he just wanted to sit here feeling something other than empty. The next day moved in slow motion. Nathan worked on autopilot, checking his phone too often, watching the clock like he was 16 instead of 32. Tommy had soccer practice after school, which Marcus agreed to handle, giving Nathan time to go home and change and try to calm the nervous energy buzzing under his skin. He stood in front of his closet feeling ridiculous. It wasn't a date, just dinner, but he changed shirts 3 times anyway, settling on a dark blue button-down that wasn't too formal, but also wasn't the grease-stained t-shirts he usually lived in. He shaved, used cologne, felt like an idiot for caring this much. The Route 9 Diner sat on the edge of town, a classic chrome and neon place that had been there since the 50s. Nathan arrived 10 minutes early, grabbed a booth in the back corner where they'd have some privacy, ordered coffee he didn't drink. Claire walked in at exactly 7 o'clock. She'd followed his instructions: jeans, simple black shirt, leather jacket that looked expensive but not flashy. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders, and she wore less makeup than Nathan had ever seen. She looked younger, more vulnerable, absolutely beautiful. Nathan stood without thinking about it, and Claire slid into the booth across from him, smiling. Hi! Hi! Nathan sat back down, suddenly aware of how loud his heartbeat was. You found it okay? GPS works even for rich people. Her tone was teasing. This place is great, very authentic. You mean old and kind of run down? I mean it feels real. Claire looked around at the worn booths, the black and white checkered floor, the jukebox in the corner that probably still worked. I love it. The waitress came over, Betty, who'd worked here forever and knew everyone in town. Her eyes widened slightly when she recognized Claire, but she just pulled out her order pad. What can I get you folks? They ordered burgers and fries, nothing fancy, and Betty left with a knowing look that Nathan chose to ignore. Claire wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, looking at him across the table. I was nervous driving over here, she admitted. Isn't that ridiculous? I negotiate billion-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but the idea of having dinner with you had me checking my reflection 5 times before I left. I changed shirts 3 times. Claire laughed, and the sound of it did something to Nathan's chest. We're a mess, aren't we? Pretty much. They fell into easy conversation after that. Claire asked about Tommy's soccer practice, and Nathan told her about his son's complete lack of coordination but endless enthusiasm. Claire talked about a conference call that morning where she'd wanted to throw her phone across the room. They compared notes on loneliness, how it felt to be surrounded by people and still feel completely isolated. The food came. They ate and talked and laughed more than Nathan had laughed in months. Claire told him about growing up as the daughter of a business magnate, how she'd never had a choice in what she became. Nathan told her about his own father, dead from a heart attack when Nathan was 19, leaving him to figure out life without a blueprint. Is that why you became a mechanic? Claire asked. Because he was one? Yeah, he taught me everything. Cars made sense to him in a way people never did. I think I'm the same way. Nathan pushed fries around his plate. Sarah used to hate that about me. Said I'd rather fix engines than talk about feelings. Were you in love with her? Really in love? Nathan thought about it. Tried to separate the memory of 25-year-old Nathan, who thought he had everything figured out, from the 32-year-old who knew better. I thought I was, he said slowly. But looking back, I think I was more in love with the idea of it. We were young. She was beautiful and exciting and made me feel like I could be more than just a mechanic in a small town. And when she got pregnant, I convinced myself it was fate, that we were supposed to be together, build a life, be a family. But she didn't want that. No. She wanted escape, adventure, all the things a baby and a broke boyfriend couldn't give her. Nathan met Claire's eyes. I don't blame her anymore. Took me a long time to get there, but I don't. We were kids playing at being adults, and when it got real, she ran. Can't fault someone for knowing what they want, even if it's not you. Claire was quiet, studying him. You're kinder about her than I am. I'm her mother, and I think what she did was selfish and cruel, especially to Tommy. Maybe, but she gave me the best thing in my life, so I try to focus on that. You're a good father, Nathan. Better than she deserved. The words settled warm in Nathan's chest. They finished eating, split a piece of pie that was too sweet but tasted perfect anyway, kept talking until Betty started giving them looks that suggested other people might want the table. Nathan paid the check despite Claire's protests, and they walked out into the parking lot where moths circled the streetlights. I don't want this to end, Claire said quietly. The evening, I mean, is that pathetic? If it is, then I'm pathetic too. Nathan looked at his truck, then at Claire's Mercedes, then back at her. Want to go for a drive? There's a spot up in the hills, good view of the valley. I'd like that. They took Nathan's truck because Claire's car was too nice for the dirt roads. She didn't complain, just climbed into the passenger seat and rolled down the window, letting the night air blow through as Nathan drove. The road wound up through trees, past farmland and old estates until it opened onto a clearing where the whole valley spread out below them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Nathan killed the engine. They sat in comfortable silence, looking out at the view. Sarah and I came here once, Nathan said, after we found out she was pregnant. She cried the whole time, said her life was over, that she'd never get out of this town now. He paused. I tried to convince her it would be okay, that we'd figure it out together, but I could see it in her eyes. She'd already left. Just took her a few more months to actually do it. Claire reached across the seat, took his hand. Her fingers were cool and soft and fit perfectly against his. I'm sorry she hurt you. I'm sorry she hurt you too. Can't be easy having a daughter who barely talks to you. It's not. But I failed her in a lot of ways. Was too focused on business when she needed a mother, pushed her toward success instead of happiness. By the time I realized what I'd done, she was already gone. Claire's thumb traced circles on Nathan's palm. I think that's why I understand what you feel. We both lost people we loved because we weren't enough for them. Or maybe because we were too much. Either way, we're both here trying to figure out how to feel human again. Nathan turned to look at her, In the dim light from the dashboard, her face was all shadows and soft edges. Beautiful and sad and real. "Can I tell you something that's probably going to sound crazy?" he said. "Please do." "I feel more like myself sitting in this truck with you than I have in 7 years. I don't know what that means. I don't know what we're doing or where this goes, but I needed you to know that. Whatever this is, it matters." Claire's eyes shimmered. She leaned across the seat and kissed him. It wasn't passionate or desperate, just soft and slow and perfect. Her lips tasted like coffee and pie and possibility. Nathan's hand came up to cup her face, feeling the warmth of her skin. The reality of this moment that should have been wrong but felt more right than anything he'd experienced in years. When they pulled apart, Claire rested her forehead against his. "This is going to be complicated," she whispered. "I know. People are going to judge us, talk about us, probably say terrible things. I know. Sarah's going to find out eventually, and when she does, I know." Nathan kissed her again, brief and gentle. "But I don't care, do you?" Claire pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I should care about all of it. The scandal, the gossip, what my business partners will think, what it'll do to my reputation." She smiled, and it was the freest thing Nathan had ever seen. "But I don't. Not even a little." They sat there in the truck, hands intertwined, looking out at the valley below. Nathan felt something shifting inside him, not just the emptiness filling, but actual change. Like he was becoming someone new, someone who felt things, someone who took chances instead of just surviving day after day. "I should get back," Claire said eventually. "Early meeting tomorrow. Conference call with Tokyo." "Right, yeah." Nathan started the truck but didn't move yet. "When can I see you again?" "Whenever you want. I'll make time." "Tomorrow?" Claire laughed. "Nathan Cole, are you asking me on a second date?" "Maybe. If this was a first date, was it a first date?" "I think it was." She kissed him once more, quick and sweet. "And yes to tomorrow. Text me when and where." Nathan drove them back down the winding road, accompanied by comfortable silence and the occasional comment about the view. He walked Claire to her car in the diner parking lot, kissed her goodnight under the streetlights where anyone driving past could see them, and didn't care who noticed. She drove away with a wave, taillights disappearing into the night, and Nathan stood there feeling like the ground had shifted underneath him. Everything was different now. Everything mattered again. His phone buzzed as he climbed into his truck. "Marcus, Diane saw you at the diner. With Claire Whitmore. Explain immediately." Nathan groaned. So it started. The questions. The gossip. The inevitable spreading of news through a town where everyone knew everyone's business. He typed back. "Tomorrow. I'll explain tomorrow. It's late. You're dating Claire Whitmore, Sarah's mom." I said tomorrow. Nathan drove home with his phone buzzing continuously. Marcus demanding answers, Diane apparently losing her mind, probably half the town already discussing what they'd seen. He ignored all of it. Let them talk. Let them speculate. None of it changed how he felt sitting in that truck with Claire, finally feeling alive after years of numbness. Tommy was asleep when Nathan got home, and Marcus's wife had left a note saying Tommy had been perfect, and also, "Call me immediately." Nathan crumpled the note, checked on his son, stood in the doorway watching Tommy sleep. This kid was his priority, his responsibility. Whatever happened with Claire, Nathan had to make sure Tommy was okay, had to make sure this didn't blow up in a way that hurt his son. But looking at Tommy's peaceful face, Nathan realized something important. His son deserved a father who was actually living, not just going through motions. Tommy needed to see what it looked like to take chances, to feel things, to be happy. And for the first time in 7 years, Nathan thought he might actually be capable of that. His phone buzzed one more time. "Claire, thank you for tonight. Sleep well." Nathan smiled, typed back. "You too. Dream about plastic boots and cheap coffee." "Already am." He fell asleep easier than he had in months. Claire's face in his mind, the taste of her kiss still on his lips, and the certain knowledge that everything was about to get a lot more complicated. But complicated was better than empty. Complicated meant he was feeling something, and that was enough. The interrogation started at 7:30 the next morning when Marcus showed up at Nathan's door with coffee and the expression of someone who wouldn't leave until he got answers. "Tommy's eating cereal," Nathan said, blocking the doorway. "Can this wait?" "No." Marcus pushed past him into the kitchen where Tommy was indeed eating Cheerios while watching cartoons on the tablet propped against the milk carton. "Hey, buddy, your dad and I need to talk grown-up stuff for a minute. That okay?" Tommy shrugged, eyes glued to the screen. "Okay." Marcus pulled Nathan into the hallway, lowered his voice to a harsh whisper. "Claire Whitmore, Sarah's mother. What the hell, Nathan? It's not what you think." "Really? Because Diane saw you two at the diner looking pretty damn cozy, and half the town is already talking about it." Nathan's jaw tightened. "It was just dinner." "Just dinner." Marcus looked at him hard. "You're a terrible liar, always have been, so try again, mate." Nathan glanced toward the kitchen where Tommy was singing along to the cartoon theme song, completely oblivious. He couldn't have this conversation here. Couldn't risk his son overhearing something he wasn't ready to explain. "Not now," Nathan said quietly. "I'll tell you everything, but not with Tommy here." Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Lunch, the diner, noon, and you better have a good explanation for why you're dating your ex-girlfriend's mother." "Well, I'm not—" Nathan stopped. Because what was he doing? Dating Claire felt too simple for what was happening between them. But it wasn't not that either. "It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated." Marcus headed for the door, then turned back. "Look, I don't care who you date. You deserve to be happy. But this is going to cause problems. You know that, right? People are going to have opinions. Ugly ones. Let them. Ito ma amore supait pasant." And what about Tommy? What happens when kids at school start saying stuff because their parents are gossiping about his dad? That hit harder. Nathan hadn't thought that far ahead. Hadn't considered how the town's reaction might affect his son. "I'll handle it," Nathan said, with more confidence than he felt. Marcus left, and Nathan got Tommy ready for school on autopilot. His phone buzzed constantly. Messages from Diane, from Mike, from people he hadn't talked to in months, suddenly very interested in his personal life. He ignored all of them except one. "Claire. Good morning. How are you handling the aftermath?" Nathan. "Everyone wants answers I don't have." Claire. "Same here. My assistant asked if the rumors were true. I told her my personal life was personal." Nathan. "What rumors?" Claire. "Apparently we were seen kissing in a parking lot. Town's already decided we're having a scandalous affair." Nathan. "Are we?" Claire. "Having an affair?" "I don't think you can have an affair when you're both single." Nathan. "You know what I mean?" There was a pause, then, "I'd like to see you tonight, my place. I'll cook, or attempt to." Fair warning, I'm terrible at it. Nathan shouldn't. Should slow this down, think it through, consider the consequences. But his fingers were already typing. Nathan. "What time?" Claire. 7? "I'll leave the gate open." Nathan dropped Tommy at school and headed to the garage, bracing himself for Mike's inevitable commentary. He wasn't disappointed. "So," Mike said the second Nathan walked in, "you and Claire Whitmore, not talking about it. The whole town's talking about it. Betty from the diner called me last night. Said you two were looking pretty serious. Betty needs a hobby." Mike grinned. "This is her hobby, and man, she's got material now. Claire Whitmore. Nathan, I know who she is." "Do you? Because she's not just some woman. She's Sarah's mom. Your ex's mom." Mike searched for the word. "That's a situation." "Yeah, well, my whole life's a situation." Nathan grabbed his tools, headed for the first car on the schedule. "Can we just work, please?" Mike left him alone after that, but Nathan could feel the weight of unasked questions hanging in the air. The morning dragged. Every customer who came in seemed to look at him differently, like they knew something, like they were waiting for him to confirm or deny the gossip spreading through town like wildfire. At noon, Nathan met Marcus at the diner. Same booth from last night, except now it felt different, tainted by everyone's attention. Betty brought coffee without being asked and lingered a little too long, clearly hoping to overhear something worth repeating. "All right, Marcus said once they were alone. Talk. So Nathan did. He told Marcus about the storm, about showing up at Claire's house instead of going to the blind date, about the conversation that had cracked both of them open. He told him about the loneliness, the emptiness, the way Claire understood things nobody else did. He left out some details. The kiss, the way his heart raced when she smiled, but gave Marcus enough to understand this wasn't some casual thing. Marcus listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When Nathan finished, his friend sat back and let out a long breath. Okay, Marcus said slowly. I get it, I do. You've been a ghost for 7 years and she makes you feel human again. That's actually kind of beautiful, man. But it's still Sarah's mom. But it's, and I know you don't care what people think, but Tommy's going to hear things. Kids are cruel. And when they find out his dad is dating his grandmother, she's not his grandmother, Nathan cut in, sharper than intended. Sarah left. She doesn't get to define what Claire is to Tommy. Fair enough, but the town won't see it that way. They're going to talk. Make it into something dirty. So what am I supposed to do? Walk away? Go back to being numb because people might gossip? Marcus raised his hands. I'm not saying that. I'm saying go into this with your eyes open. Know what you're risking. Nathan already knew. Had thought about little else since last night. But the alternative, cutting things off with Claire, going back to the empty routine, felt impossible now, like trying to forget how to breathe. I'm seeing her tonight, Moss, Nathan said, at her place. And I know it's fast and probably stupid, but Marcus, I can't go back to feeling nothing. I can't do it. Marcus nodded slowly. Then don't. Just promise me you'll be careful, for Tommy's sake. I promise. They ate lunch in relative silence after that, the kind of comfortable quiet that came from 15 years of friendship. When they stood to leave, Marcus grabbed Nathan's shoulder. For what it's worth, I hope it works out. You deserve to be happy. Just maybe next time pick someone who's not related to your ex? Nathan laughed despite himself. I'll keep that in mind. The rest of the day crawled by. Nathan worked on a brake job that should have taken an hour but stretched to 3 because he couldn't focus. His mind kept drifting to tonight, to Claire, to what it meant that this was happening so fast, burning so bright after years of nothing. He picked up Tommy from school, listened to stories about kickball and a science project on volcanoes, made grilled cheese for dinner that Tommy declared pretty good for dad food. After homework and a bath time, Nathan tucked his son into bed and hesitated in the doorway. Hey, bud, can I ask you something? Tommy looked up from his dinosaur book. Yeah? Tommy looked. If I started spending time with someone, like a friend, would that be weird for you? Tommy considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. Is the friend nice? Very nice. Do they like dinosaurs? I don't know. I could ask. Okay. Tommy went back to his book like the matter was settled. Can they come to my birthday party? Nathan's throat tightened. His son's birthday was in 3 weeks. Tommy had been planning it for months. Pizza party, dinosaur decorations, inviting his whole class. The idea of Claire being there, of introducing her to Tommy's world, felt too big, too real. Maybe, Nathan said. We'll see. He kissed Tommy goodnight and left before his son could ask more questions Nathan didn't have answers for. At 6:30, Nathan changed clothes for the second time, settled on jeans and a clean shirt that didn't smell like motor oil, and drove toward the hills. The gate to Claire's estate was open like she'd promised. His truck felt ridiculous on the pristine driveway, cheap and out of place, but Nathan ignored the feeling and parked near the front entrance. Claire opened the door before he could knock. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, barefoot again, hair pulled back, no makeup, no armor, just her. Hi, she said, and the smile she gave him was worth every piece of gossip, every complication waiting down the road. Hi. Nathan stepped inside and Claire closed the door behind him, shutting out the world. She led him to the kitchen where something was burning. Oh no! Claire rushed to the stove, grabbed a pot holder, pulled a smoking pan from the oven. I told you I was terrible at this. Nathan looked at what might have once been chicken, Now it was charcoal. What were you trying to make? Roasted chicken with vegetables. The recipe said 45 minutes at 400 degrees. I followed the instructions exactly. Did you cover it? Was I supposed to cover it? Nathan couldn't help but laugh. Claire looked so genuinely distressed standing there with her ruined dinner that something in his chest cracked open even wider. It's fine, he said. We'll order pizza. I wanted to cook for you, to do something normal people do. Normal people burn dinner all the time. It's actually very normal. Nathan took the pan from her, set it in the sink. Besides, I'm dating a CEO who runs a business empire. I didn't expect Martha Stewart. The word hung in the air. Dating. He'd said it without thinking, and now it was out there, making this real. Claire looked at him. Is that what we're doing? Dating? I don't know what else to call it. Neither do I. She moved closer until she was standing right in front of him, close enough that Nathan could smell her perfume. But I like it, whatever it is. Oh, sparse aras. Nathan kissed her, pulled her close and felt her melt against him, her hands sliding up his chest, fingers curling into his shirt. This kiss was different from last night, less tentative, more certain, like they'd both decided to stop questioning and just feel. When they broke apart, Claire rested her head against his shoulder. I ordered pizza before you got here, she admitted. I knew the chicken was doomed 20 minutes in. Nathan laughed, the sound echoing through the massive kitchen. You're terrible. I know. She pulled back to look at him. But I wanted you to see me try. To know I'm not just the polished CEO who has everything figured out. I'm also the woman who burns dinner and panics about it. I like both versions. They ate pizza in the same study where they'd first talked, sitting on the floor in front of the fireplace because Claire said she was tired of being formal in her own house. Nathan told her about Marcus's interrogation, about the gossip spreading through town, about Tommy asking if his friend liked dinosaurs. Does he know about me? Claire asked carefully. No, not yet. I wanted to make sure this was... Nathan struggled for the right word. Something before I brought him into it. That's smart. Protecting him. He's been through enough. Sarah leaving messed him up in ways he doesn't even realize yet. I won't add to that unless I'm sure. Claire was quiet for a moment, picking pepperoni off her pizza slice. I'd like to meet him. When you're ready. If you're ready, no pressure. Afamkos. The thought of Claire and Tommy in the same room made Nathan's heart race. Two parts of his life that existed in completely different spaces, colliding. It should have terrified him. Instead, he felt something like hope. His birthday's in 3 weeks, Nathan said. Pizza party, plastic dinosaurs, cake from the grocery store. It's not going to be fancy. It sounds perfect. You'd really want to come to a 7-year-old's birthday party? Yeah. Claire smiled. Nathan, I'd go anywhere if it meant spending time with you. Even a room full of screaming children and plastic dinosaurs. They finished eating and migrated to the couch. Claire curled against Nathan's side, his arm around her shoulders. It felt natural, easy, like they'd been doing this for years instead of days. Can I tell you something I haven't told anyone? Claire said quietly. Anything. I think about selling the companies, all of them, just walking away from my father's legacy and starting over. She paused. I've thought about it for years, actually. But I never do it because I'm terrified of who I'd be without all of this. The business is my identity. Without it, I'm just nothing. Nathan tightened his arm around her. You're not nothing. You're kind and honest and brave enough to admit you're lonely. That's more than most people can manage. I don't feel brave. I feel trapped. Then get out. Sell the companies. Start over. It's not that simple. There are employees who depend on... There are always going to be reasons not to do it, Nathan interrupted gently. Always going to be people who need you to be who they expect. But at some point, don't you deserve to choose yourself? Claire turned to look at him, eyes shining. Is that what you did when you came to my house that night? Yeah, I chose honesty over performing. You over numbness. It was terrifying. Is it still terrifying? Nathan thought about it. About the gossip, the complications. The inevitable explosion when Sarah found out. About risking his heart after 7 years of keeping it safely locked away. Yeah, he said, but it's worth it. Claire kissed him then, slow and deep, and Nathan felt everything else fall away. The worries, the fears, the voice in his head saying this was too fast, too complicated. None of it mattered. This mattered. She mattered. They stayed like that for hours, talking and kissing and learning each other. Claire told him about her divorce, about her ex-husband who'd married her for the money and left when he realized she came with expectations. Nathan told her about the first year after Sarah left, when he'd barely slept, terrified he'd mess up with Tommy, convinced he wasn't enough to be both parents. You're more than enough, Claire said. Tommy's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have him. He's the only thing that kept me from completely falling apart. Around midnight, Nathan's phone buzzed. Marcus, Diane wants to know if you're coming to dinner Sunday. Also, if you're bringing Claire. Also, approximately 1 million other questions I'm refusing to answer. Nathan showed Claire the message. She laughed. Are we going to dinner Sunday? Do you want to? Nathan asked. Will they grill me about my intentions? Absolutely. Then yes, I'd love to go. Nathan typed back. We'll be there. Tell Diane to prepare her interrogation. Marcus's response was immediate. You're insane. I love it. Nathan left around 1 in the morning, kissing Claire goodbye at the door like a teenager, already planning when he could see her again. The drive home felt different. The dark roads, the quiet town, everything looked the same but felt transformed, like the world had shifted slightly off its axis. He fell into bed exhausted and woke 4 hours later to Tommy jumping on him. Dad, it's Saturday. Can we go to the park? Nathan groaned, pulled a pillow over his face. What time is it? 6:30. Come on. So Nathan dragged himself out of bed, made coffee, took his over-energized son to the park, where Tommy ran around the playground like he'd been injected with pure sugar. Nathan sat on a bench, checking his phone, smiling at messages from Claire about her terrible morning meeting and how she kept thinking about last night. Mr. Cole? Nathan looked up. A woman stood in front of him, late 30s, professionally dressed, even on a Saturday, vaguely familiar. Yes? I'm Jennifer Harding. My son goes to school with Tommy. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to introduce myself and to say, well, I think it's brave, what you're doing. Nathan's guard went up immediately. What I'm doing? With Claire Whitmore, I'm sure people are talking, but good for you. Moving on. Even if it is with, she paused delicately, Sarah's mother. There it was, the judgment wrapped in false sweetness. Nathan stood slowly. I don't think my personal life is anyone's business, he said evenly. Of course not. I didn't mean, I just wanted you to know that some of us think it's wonderful, that you're finding happiness. Tommy deserves to see his father happy. She walked away before Nathan could respond, and he stood there feeling like he'd been slapped. This was just the beginning. The gossip would get worse. People would have opinions, would whisper behind his back, would make this into something ugly. His phone buzzed. Claire. Missing you already. Is that pathetic? Nathan looked across the playground where Tommy was showing another kid how to hang upside down on the monkey bars, completely oblivious to the adult drama swirling around him. Then he looked back at his phone. Not pathetic. I miss you too. Claire. Come over tonight. I'll actually cook this time. Or we'll burn dinner together. Nathan. Deal. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur. Nathan spent Saturday night at Claire's, where they successfully made pasta that was only slightly overcooked. Sunday morning, he took Tommy to breakfast and tried to explain that Dad had a friend who might be around more often. Tommy asked if the friend liked video games. Nathan said he'd find out. Sunday dinner at Marcus and Diane's house was exactly as painful as Nathan expected. Claire showed up in jeans and a simple blouse, holding a bottle of wine that probably cost more than the meal. Diane answered the door, eyes wide, clearly trying not to stare. Claire, wow, hi, come in. Nathan's already here, in the living room, with Marcus and the kids. Tommy's playing with Emma. Come in. Nathan rescued Claire from Diane's nervous rambling, introducing her to everyone while Marcus grinned like this was the best entertainment he'd had in months. Dinner was roast chicken and potatoes, and Diane asked approximately 40 questions disguised as polite conversation. So how did you two meet? I mean, beyond, the obvious connection. We ran into each other during a storm, Claire said smoothly, started talking, realized we had more in common than we expected. And you don't think it's, Diane searched for diplomatic phrasing, complicated, given the history? Everything worth having is complicated, Claire said. And under the table, her hand found Nathan's. Tommy and Emma burst into the dining room arguing about whether a T-Rex could beat a pterodactyl, effectively derailing the interrogation. Nathan had never been more grateful for 7-year-olds. After dinner, while the kids played in the basement, Marcus pulled Nathan aside. "She's good for you," Marcus said quietly. "I can see it. You're different, alive again." "Yeah? Yeah, just be careful, man. The town's already talking. Some people are supportive. Others," he shook his head, "just watch your back." Nathan nodded. He'd known this wouldn't be easy, but watching Claire laugh at something Diane said, seeing her fit so naturally into his world, despite everything that made this complicated, he knew he'd made the right choice. They left around 8, Tommy half asleep in Nathan's arms, Claire following them to the driveway. "That wasn't so bad," she said. "Diane asked you about 15 awkward questions." 16. "But I like them. They care about you. That's rare." Nathan shifted Tommy's weight, smiled at her over his son's sleeping head. "Want to have breakfast tomorrow? The 3 of us?" Claire's eyes went soft. "Really?" "Yeah, nothing fancy, just pancakes, but I think Tommy should know you, if this is going to be something real." "It is real," Claire said quietly. "At least it is for me. For me too." She kissed him goodnight, soft and quick because Tommy was there, and Nathan drove home feeling like he was standing on the edge of something huge, something that could either be the best decision he'd ever made or destroy everything. But the fear was worth it, because for the first time in 7 years, Nathan Cole was actually living instead of just surviving. And that made all the difference. Monday morning started with pancakes that Tommy declared were the best ever made by anyone in the whole world, which Nathan suspected had less to do with his cooking and more to do with the fact that Claire was sitting at their small kitchen table laughing at his son's dinosaur impressions. "That's a Brachiosaurus," Tommy announced, stretching his neck as high as it would go. They were the tallest dinosaurs, like 40 feet tall. That's taller than our house. That's very tall, Claire said seriously. "Were they scary?" Tommy looked at her like she'd asked if the sky was purple. "No, they ate plants. The scary ones were the carnivores, like T-Rex. He could bite through a car." "Good to know. I'll watch out for T-Rexes." Tommy giggled, and Nathan felt something tighten in his chest. Watching them together, his son and this woman who'd somehow become essential in a matter of weeks, felt too good, too right, which terrified him because right things could still fall apart. After breakfast, Nathan walked Tommy to the bus stop while Claire waited in the truck. Mrs. Patterson from next door was already there with her twin boys, and her eyebrows shot up when she saw Nathan approach. "Morning, Nathan." "Morning. I hear congratulations are in order. New relationship?" Nathan kept his expression neutral. "Something like that." "With Claire Whitmore. That's certainly interesting." "Is it?" Nathan's tone carried a warning that Mrs. Patterson either didn't catch or chose to ignore. "I just think it's wonderful you're moving on, even if the situation is a bit unconventional." The bus arrived before Nathan could respond, which was probably for the best. He watched Tommy climb aboard, waving through the window, then walked back to where Claire sat in his truck, looking uncomfortable. "She knows," Claire said as Nathan climbed into the driver's seat. "The whole town knows. Doesn't matter." "It does if it affects Tommy." Nathan started the engine, pulled away from the curb. "Tommy's fine. He likes you. That's what matters." But Claire was quiet the rest of the drive to her estate, and Nathan could feel worry radiating off her in waves. When he parked in her driveway, she didn't get out right away. "I have a board meeting this afternoon," she said. "One of the directors already emailed asking about recent developments in my personal life and whether they might affect my judgment." Nathan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What did you say?" "I told him my personal life was none of his concern. But Nathan, This is going to get worse before it gets better. These people, they'll use anything to undermine me. And if they think I'm distracted or making poor choices, you think I'm a poor choice? What? No, that's not. Claire turned to face him fully. I think you're the best choice I've made in 20 years. But they won't see it that way. They'll see scandal, impropriety, a CEO who can't maintain appropriate boundaries. So what are you saying? That we should hide this? Pretend we're not together? I'm saying we need to be prepared for fallout, real consequences, not just gossip. Claire's voice was tight. I'm saying I'm scared, Nathan, of losing my position, of dragging you and Tommy into something that gets ugly, of having to choose between you and everything I've built. Nathan reached across the seat, took her hand. No one's asking you to choose anything. We'll handle whatever comes, together. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's not impossible either. He squeezed her fingers. Look, I've spent 7 years being scared. Scared to feel anything. Scared to risk anything. Scared to live. I'm done with that. If people want to judge us, let them. I'm not losing you because someone else thinks this is inappropriate. Claire's eyes were bright. I don't deserve you. Yeah, you do. You deserve someone who sees you for who you are, not what you can do for them, and who thinks you're worth fighting for. She kissed him then, hard and desperate. Like she was trying to prove something to herself. When they broke apart, she rested her forehead against his. I have to go, she whispered. The meeting's in 2 hours and I need to prepare. Kick their asses. Claire laughed wetly. I'll try. Nathan watched her walk into that massive house, shoulders straight, every inch the powerful CEO who ran empires. But he'd seen the fear underneath, the vulnerability she showed only to him. And he understood it completely because he felt it too. The week that followed was the hardest Nathan had experienced since Sarah left. The gossip intensified. People stopped him in the grocery store to ask invasive questions disguised as concern. Parents at Tommy's school gave him looks that ranged from disapproving to pitying. Someone left a note on his truck windshield that just said disgusting in block letters. Tommy started coming home quiet, which was wrong. Tommy was never quiet. Hey, bud, Nathan said Thursday evening, watching his son push spaghetti around his plate. You okay? Yeah. You sure? You sure, Ish? You've barely said 2 words since I picked you up. Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Then, Jaden said you have a girlfriend. Nathan's stomach dropped. Yeah, I do. Does that bother you? No. Tommy looked up, and his eyes were too serious for a 7-year-old. But Jaden said she's my grandma. That's weird, right? You can't date your grandma. Oh, yeah, Nathan set down his fork carefully. Claire's not your grandma, Tommy. Your mom, Sarah, she's Claire's daughter. But Claire's not your grandma. She's just someone I care about. Someone who makes me happy. Jaden's mom said it's wrong, that people are talking about it. The anger that flared in Nathan's chest was white hot. Jaden's mom should mind her own business. There's nothing wrong with me and Claire. We're both adults. We both care about each other. And honestly, that's all that matters. But if people think it's weird, people think lots of things, bud. Doesn't make them right. Nathan reached across the table, took Tommy's small hand. Are you okay with me seeing Claire? Really okay? Because if you're not, we need to talk about it. Tommy considered this with that heartbreaking seriousness. She's nice, and she laughed at my T-Rex. She did. And you smile more now, like real smiles, not the pretend ones. Nathan felt something crack in his chest. His 7-year-old son had noticed, had seen through the performance Nathan thought he'd perfected. Yeah, Nathan said quietly. I do smile more now. Then I think it's okay, even if Jaden's mom is mean about it. Nathan pulled Tommy into a hug, holding his son tight, and made a decision. If people were going to talk, were going to judge, were going to make this harder than it needed to be, then screw hiding. Screw pretending this was anything other than what it was. He texted Claire. Tommy knows. and he's okay with us. Are you free this weekend? Want to do something together? The three of us. Her response came fast. Yes, absolutely yes. Saturday morning, they went to the aquarium 2 towns over. Claire picked them up in her Mercedes, which made Tommy's eyes go wide. Whoa, this car is so cool. You like it? Claire smiled at him in the rearview mirror. It's pretty fast, too. Can you make it go fast? Not with precious cargo on board. Your dad would kill me. Tommy giggled, and they spent the drive talking about sharks and whether dolphins were smarter than people. Nathan watched them interact, Claire treating his son like a real person instead of a cute accessory, and felt that terrifying rightness again. The aquarium was crowded, weekend families everywhere, kids pressing against glass tanks, couples holding hands. Nathan saw the looks they got, the double takes when people recognized Claire, the whispers that followed them from exhibit to exhibit. Claire noticed too. Her shoulders tensed, her smile became more fixed. Hey, Nathan said quietly, touching her elbow as Tommy ran ahead to the shark tank. Ignore them. I'm trying, but everyone's staring. Let them stare, we're just a family having a day out. The word hung between them. Family. It was too soon for that word. They'd known each other barely a month. But it felt true anyway. Claire relaxed slightly, her hand finding his. They caught up to Tommy, who was explaining to another kid that great white sharks had 300 teeth and could smell blood from miles away. He gets the dinosaur facts from you? Claire asked. No, that's all him. Kid reads constantly, absorbs information like a sponge. He's brilliant. He's 7. He can be both. They spent hours there, moving from tank to tank, Tommy providing running commentary on every creature they saw. At the touch tank, Claire convinced Nathan to pet a stingray, laughing when he flinched at the texture. It feels like mushrooms, Nathan complained. Exactly. Weird mushrooms that swim. Tommy thought this was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. Claire said mushrooms. They ate overpriced pizza in the cafeteria, Tommy chattering about octopuses and how they could fit through any opening bigger than their beak. Nathan watched Claire listen with genuine interest, asking questions, treating his son's enthusiastic rambling like it mattered. Can Claire come to my birthday party? Tommy asked suddenly. Nathan and Claire both froze. Tommy looked between them. If she wants to. It's going to have dinosaurs and pizza, and Marcus said Emma's coming and probably some kids from school. I'd love to come, Claire said softly, looking at Nathan for confirmation. Yeah, Nathan managed. Of course. You're invited. Tommy beamed. Cool. It's 2 weeks from Saturday. Dad's making a dinosaur cake. It's going to be awesome. The ride home was quieter, Tommy falling asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the day. Claire drove carefully, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the console where Nathan held it. Today was perfect, she said. Yeah? Yeah. I can't remember the last time I just existed, without thinking about meetings or responsibilities or what people expected from me. I was just Claire, with you and Tommy, being normal. You're always just Claire to us. Whoa! She squeezed his hand. That's why it matters. When they pulled up to Nathan's house, Tommy woke up enough to mumble goodnight to Claire and stumble inside. Nathan lingered by the car, not ready for the day to end. Come in, he said. For a bit. Just to talk. Claire glanced at the neighboring houses where curtains were definitely twitching. Are you sure? People will see. I don't care. So she came in. Nathan got Tommy into bed while Claire waited in the living room, looking at the photos on the wall. Tommy as a baby, Tommy missing teeth, Tommy holding up a fish they'd caught last summer. When Nathan came back downstairs, she was staring at a picture of him and Sarah from 8 years ago, both of them young and stupid and convinced they had everything figured out. You looked happy, Claire said quietly. I thought I was. But looking back, I don't know. Maybe I was just young enough to not know the difference between happy and hopeful. Claire set the frame down. Do you still love her? The question was soft, but Nathan heard the fear underneath it. The worry that he was with Claire because she was available, not because she was what he wanted. No, Nathan said, and meant it completely. I stopped loving Sarah a long time ago. Maybe before she even left. We were playing house, pretending to be adults, and when it stopped being fun, she walked away. There's nothing left to love. But if she came back, she won't. And even if she did, it wouldn't matter. Nathan closed the distance between them, cupped Claire's face in his hands. I'm not with you because I'm settling, or because you're convenient, or because I'm trying to get back at Sarah for leaving. I'm with you because when I'm around you, I remember what it feels like to be alive. You make me want to be better, to feel more, to actually live instead of just going through motions. Beau boss vai in alpites. Claire's eyes shimmered. I keep waiting for you to realize you can do better, that you don't need the complicated mess that comes with being with me. I don't want better. I want you. She kissed him then, and Nathan felt everything else fall away. The gossip, the judgment, the fear of what people would say. None of it mattered. This mattered. She mattered. They ended up on the couch, tangled together, kissing like teenagers who'd just discovered this was allowed. Claire's hands in his hair, Nathan's fingers tracing patterns on her back, both of them breathing hard and wanting more but knowing Tommy was upstairs, and this wasn't the right time. I should go, Claire whispered against his lips. I know, but I don't want to. I know that too, Sang. She left around 10, kissing him goodnight at the door, and Nathan watched her drive away before checking on Tommy one more time. His son was sprawled across the bed, dinosaur book open on his chest, completely peaceful. Nathan's phone buzzed as he headed to his own room. Unknown number. You should be ashamed of yourself. Sleeping with your ex's mother. What kind of example are you setting for your son? Nathan stared at the message for a long moment. Then he blocked the number and deleted the text. People could think whatever they wanted. He was done letting other people's opinions dictate his life. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of work and stolen moments with Claire. She started coming to the garage during lunch, bringing sandwiches and sitting in the break room talking to Nathan, while Mike made increasingly unsubtle comments about favoritism. She joined them for dinner twice, helping Tommy with homework and laughing when Nathan burned the garlic bread. But the gossip intensified. Someone started a thread on the town Facebook page debating whether their relationship was inappropriate. Parents whispered at school pickup. Nathan got a call from Tommy's teacher asking if everything was stable at home because Tommy seemed distracted. Claire faced worse. One of her board members formally requested a vote of no confidence, citing conduct unbecoming and personal decisions that reflect poorly on the company. Well, business partners started asking questions. A reporter from the local paper called asking for comment on the developing situation. The night before Tommy's birthday party, Claire showed up at Nathan's door in tears. I can't do this, she said, pushing past him into the house. I can't. Nathan, they're trying to remove me. From my own company. The company my father built, because I'm dating you. Nathan's blood ran cold. What happened? Emergency board meeting. 3 directors formally moved to remove me as CEO based on a morality clause in the company charter. They're saying my relationship with you demonstrates poor judgment and creates a scandal that damages the brand. She was pacing, hands shaking. 20 years. I've given them 20 years of my life, built this empire, made them all rich beyond imagination, and they want to throw me out because I fell in love with someone they think is inappropriate. Nathan froze. You love me? Claire stopped pacing, looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. Of course I love you. Why do you think this is tearing me apart? I finally found something real, something that makes me happy. And now I have to choose between you and everything I've built. You don't have to choose anything. We'll see. They gave me an ultimatum, Nathan. End the relationship publicly, issue a statement saying it was a mistake, maintain appropriate distance, or they proceed with the vote. And the lawyers say they might actually have grounds. The morality clause is vague enough that they could make it stick. Nathan felt like he'd been punched. When do you have to decide? Mom, Monday morning. Claire's voice broke. I have 3 days to either walk away from you or lose my position as CEO. The silence that followed was crushing. Nathan could hear Tommy moving around upstairs, probably building something with his Legos, completely unaware that the adult world was falling apart one floor below. "What do you want to do?" Nathan asked quietly. "I want to tell them all to go to hell. I want to walk away from the whole thing and never look back." "But Nathan, it's not just my legacy. It's thousands of employees whose livelihoods depend on the company staying stable. It's foundations and charities and programs that do real good. I can't just abandon all of that because the board is full of judgmental old men." "But you can abandon us." Claire flinched like he'd slapped her. "That's not fair, isn't it? You're standing here telling me you love me, but you're already planning how to walk away." "I'm trying to figure out how to not destroy everything." Her voice rose, then fell just as quickly. "I don't want to lose you, but I also can't watch 20 years of work crumble because I fell in love at the wrong time with the wrong person." "I'm not the wrong person." "I know, I didn't mean—" Claire pressed her hands to her face. "I don't know what to do, Seki." Nathan wanted to tell her to stay, to fight, to choose them over the company. But he also understood the weight she carried, the responsibility, the impossible position she'd been put in. "Take the weekend," he said finally. "Don't make any decisions tonight. Come to Tommy's party tomorrow. Be with us. Then decide what you can live with." Claire looked at him with such raw pain that Nathan felt it in his bones. "What if I make the wrong choice?" "There is no wrong choice, just different consequences." He pulled her into his arms, held her while she cried into his shoulder. "Whatever you decide, I'll understand. I promise." But even as he said it, Nathan felt something breaking inside him, because he knew what she'd choose. How could she not? Her whole identity was wrapped up in that company. Asking her to give it up was like asking her to stop breathing. Claire left an hour later, face blotchy and eyes swollen, and Nathan stood in his doorway watching her taillights disappear into the night. Upstairs, Tommy was singing along to some cartoon theme song, completely oblivious to the fact that his father's world was about to shatter again. Nathan's phone buzzed. "Claire, I love you. Whatever happens, please know that." He stared at the message for a long time before responding, "I love you too." It was the first time he'd said it, and it felt like goodbye. Tommy's birthday party started at noon, and by 11:30, Nathan had transformed their small backyard into a dinosaur wonderland that looked ridiculous and perfect. Paper pterodactyls hung from tree branches. A banner reading, "Roar! Tommy is 8!" stretched across the fence. The cake, which Nathan had stayed up until 2 in the morning decorating, sat on the kitchen counter shaped like a stegosaurus with green frosting scales. Nathan kept checking his phone. No message from Claire. No confirmation she was coming. No indication whether she'd spent the night deciding to walk away from him or from the company that wanted her to. "Dad, when are people getting here?" Tommy bounced around the kitchen in his new dinosaur shirt, vibrating with excitement. "Soon, bud. Go make sure your room's clean in case anyone wants to see your fossil collection." Tommy rocketed upstairs and Nathan stared at his phone again. He'd barely slept, kept replaying Claire's tear-stained face, the way she'd said she loved him while already calculating how to leave. He understood it, hated it, couldn't blame her for it. The doorbell rang at 11:45. Nathan opened it, expecting Marcus and Diane. Claire stood there holding a gift wrapped in bright paper covered in dinosaurs. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back messily, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She also looked determined. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Nathan's throat was tight. "You came, like—" "Of course I came. I told Tommy I would." She stepped inside, set the gift on the hall table. "We need to talk. Before everyone gets here." Nathan led her into the kitchen, closed the door even though Tommy could come barreling through any second. "What did you decide?" "I'm not ending this." Claire's voice was steady. "I'm not walking away from you because a bunch of old men think I should be ashamed of who I love." Relief flooded Nathan's chest. "What about the company?" "Right." "I called an emergency meeting this morning, 7 a.m., showed up before any of them had their coffee." A small smile played at Claire's lips. "I told them exactly what I thought of their ultimatum, that I'd spent 20 years sacrificing everything for that company, and I was done. That if they wanted to remove me for having a personal life, they could go ahead and vote, but I wouldn't make it easy." "Claire, I'm not finished." She took a breath. I also told them I was planning to sell my majority stake in the company, that I'd been considering it for years, and their little power play just confirmed it was time. I'd find buyers who actually valued the work we do instead of using morality clauses to control my life. Nathan stared at her. You're selling everything? But what did Maska? Not everything. I'm keeping the foundation, the charitable work, the parts that actually matter. But the rest, the manufacturing, the real estate holdings, all of it, I'm done. I'll retain enough shares to have a voice, but I won't be CEO anymore. She looked at him with those sharp eyes that saw everything. I'm choosing myself, Nathan. Finally. I'm choosing a life that's actually mine instead of the one my father planned for me. That's huge. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Claire stepped closer, took his hands. I spent last night thinking about what I'd regret more, losing the company or losing you. And honestly, the company was already gone. I've hated running it for years. It was just a prison I built myself, convincing myself it was duty when really it was fear. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of being nothing without the title. Fear of actually living. She squeezed his fingers. But you make me want to live, to feel things, to be brave. And if I walked away from that because some board members think we're inappropriate, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. Nathan pulled her into his arms, held her tight, felt her shake slightly against him. I love you, he said into her hair. I love you so damn much. I love you too, even though you're complicated and messy and come with a 7-year-old who knows more about dinosaurs than most paleontologists. Nathan laughed, and it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. What did the board say after your speech? 2 directors stood up and applauded. 3 looked ready to have heart attacks. The others just sat there stunned. Claire pulled back to look at him. They'll accept my terms. Pulled back to. They don't have a choice. I own 52% of the company. Without me, there's nothing. So they'll take my offer or watch me burn the whole thing down. You're terrifying. I know. It's part of my charm. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Marcus and Diane with Emma, who immediately started shrieking about the dinosaur decorations. More kids arrived. Tommy's classmates, neighbors. The chaos of 8-year-olds hopped up on sugar and excitement. Claire helped Nathan set up games, hung back when parents gave her looks, smiled through the whispered comments that followed her around the party. Halfway through Pin the Tail on the Dinosaur, Jennifer Harding, Jaden's mother, the one who'd approached Nathan at the park, cornered Claire by the refreshment table. I'm surprised you're here, Jennifer said, voice carrying just enough to be overheard. Given all the talk about appropriateness and boundaries. Claire set down the juice box she'd been opening. Claire set down the, I'm here because Tommy invited me to his birthday party, same as everyone else. But you're not like everyone else. You're his grandmother's. You're Sarah's mother. It's unusual. Unusual isn't the same as wrong. I suppose that's a matter of perspective. Jennifer smiled in that way that wasn't really a smile. I just worry about the example being set. For the children. Nathan was across the yard helping Tommy open presents. But he caught the exchange. Started moving toward them. Claire held up a hand, stopping him. The example being set, Claire said clearly, is that adults can find happiness in unexpected places. That love doesn't follow arbitrary rules about who's appropriate to care for. And that being brave enough to choose yourself over other people's opinions is worth the cost. She picked up the juice box, opened it smoothly. But I appreciate your concern. Jennifer opened her mouth, closed it, walked away with her face red. Nathan reached Claire's side. You okay? Perfect. Claire handed him the juice box. For the birthday boy. He's been eyeing the presents for 10 minutes. Tommy did love his presents. Books about fossils from Marcus and Diane. A dinosaur puzzle from Emma. Action figures from his classmates. And from Claire, a model T-Rex skeleton that Tommy declared was the coolest thing ever in history. We can build it together, Claire said. If you want. Yes, can we start now? After cake, Nathan intervened, and after your friends leave. The party wound down around 3. Parents collected their sugar-crashed children, thanking Nathan for hosting while giving Claire various degrees of side-eye. Marcus and Diane stayed to help clean up, which really meant Marcus interrogated Claire while Diane pretended not to listen. "So you're really selling the company?" Marcus asked, stuffing paper plates into a trash bag. "Most of it, yes." "That's... wow. What are you going to do instead?" Claire glanced at Nathan, who was inside helping Tommy organize his new toys. "I have no idea. And that's terrifying and wonderful at the same time." "Good for you," Diane said quietly. "Seriously. I've watched you at these charity events over the years, always looking like you'd rather be anywhere else. It's nice seeing you actually smile." They left around 4, taking Emma home for her own nap. Claire and Tommy settled at the kitchen table with the dinosaur skeleton while Nathan cleaned up the backyard. Through the window, he could see them working together, Claire reading instructions, Tommy carefully connecting tiny bones, both of them completely focused. This was what family looked like. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. His phone buzzed. Unknown number again. Nathan almost ignored it, then saw it was a New York area code. "Hello? Nathan? It's Sarah." The world tilted. Nathan gripped the edge of the fence, forcing his voice steady. "Sarah? I know, it's been a while. I heard about you and my mother." Of course she had. The gossip had probably made it all the way to New York by now. "Yeah, I figured you would." "I don't understand it." Sarah's voice was tight. "My mom called me this morning, told me she was selling the company, that she was in love with you. I thought she was having some kind of breakdown." Nathan looked through the window at Claire helping Tommy, both of them laughing about something. "She's not having a breakdown, she's making a choice. A choice to throw away everything our father built, to humiliate herself over some mechanic she barely knows." Burstargian. The dismissal in her tone made Nathan's jaw clench. "I think you should talk to your mother if you have questions about her choices." "I'm talking to you, because I can't believe you'd do this. That you'd..." Sarah's voice cracked. "That's my mom, Nathan, my mom. I know who she is. Do you? Or are you just using her to get back at me for leaving?" The accusation was so ridiculous that Nathan almost laughed. "Sarah, I got over you leaving about 6 years ago. This has nothing to do with you." "Everything has to do with me. She's my mother. And she's also a person who deserves happiness, who spent 20 years doing what everyone expected instead of what she wanted, who finally chose herself." Nathan kept his voice level. "I love her, and she loves me. That's all there is." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "What about Tommy?" Tommy's fine. He likes Claire. They get along great. He's 8 years old, Nathan. He doesn't understand how messed up this situation is. The only thing messed up is everyone acting like 2 adults choosing to be together is some kind of scandal. We're not hurting anyone. We're just trying to be happy." "You're hurting me." Sarah's voice rose. "You're taking my mother away. Making me look like... Making everyone think what? That you left 7 years ago and never looked back? They already know that, Sarah. This isn't about you." He could hear her crying on the other end of the line. Part of him felt bad. The rest of him was just tired. Tired of her making everything about her pain while ignoring the wreckage she'd left behind. "I'm coming home," Sarah said finally. "For Thanksgiving. I was planning to anyway. Bringing my fiancé. And I want this, whatever this is, sorted out before then." "There's nothing to sort out. Claire and I are together. That's not changing. We'll see." Sarah hung up. Nathan stood in the backyard holding his phone, feeling like he'd just been through a small war. Through the window, Claire looked up, caught his expression, frowned. He shook his head, later, and she nodded, turning back to Tommy and the dinosaur skeleton. Thanksgiving was 3 weeks away. Sarah was coming home with her fiancé, and everything was about to explode in ways Nathan couldn't control. But looking at Claire and Tommy laughing together in his kitchen, he knew he'd face it. Whatever Sarah brought, whatever judgment came their way, they'd handle it together. The next few weeks were strange. Claire started the process of selling the company, which involved lawyers and meetings and stress that left her exhausted. But she also started smiling more, laughing more. She came to dinner at Nathan's house 3 times a week, helped Tommy with homework, learned to make spaghetti that wasn't terrible. On weekends, they took Tommy to movies and museums, building something that looked like a life. The gossip continued. People had opinions. But slowly, gradually, it started to matter less. Because the three of them were happy. And happiness, it turned out, was harder to argue against than scandal. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Claire invited Nathan and Tommy to have dinner at her place. When they arrived, she had news. "The sale's finalized," she said, pouring wine for herself and Nathan, while Tommy played with Legos in the next room. "Signed the papers this afternoon. I'm officially no longer CEO. How do you feel?" "Terrified, relieved, free." Claire smiled. "I have no idea what I'm going to do with myself. No meetings, no conference calls, no board members questioning my every decision. It's amazing." Nathan raised his glass. "To freedom, to freedom." She clinked her glass against his, and to whatever comes next. What came next was Sarah. She arrived the day before Thanksgiving, pulling up to Claire's estate in a rented BMW, with a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. Nathan was there, had been helping Claire prep for the dinner she'd insisted on hosting despite everything. When the doorbell rang, they both froze. "I'll get it," Claire said. Nathan heard voices in the entryway. Sarah's sharp and familiar. A man's deeper and smoother. Then footsteps. And suddenly Sarah was standing in the kitchen doorway. She looked different, older, more polished. Her hair was shorter, styled expensively. She wore designer clothes and carried herself like someone who'd left the small town behind and never looked back. But her eyes were the same, still running, still searching for something she couldn't name. "Nathan." She said his name like an accusation. "Sarah." The man behind her cleared his throat. "I'm Derek, Sarah's fiancé. Nice to meet you." Nobody moved to shake hands. The tension in the room was suffocating. "Where's Tommy?" Sarah asked. "At Marcus's house," Nathan said. "I didn't think he needed to be part of this conversation." "This conversation where you explain why you're sleeping with my mother?" "Sarah." Claire's voice was sharp. "That's enough, eh? Is it? Because I've spent 3 weeks trying to understand how this happened. How you could do this, both of you." Derek touched Sarah's arm. "Maybe we should all sit down. Talk calmly." I don't want to sit down. I want answers." Claire moved to stand beside Nathan, and he felt the intentionality of it. The statement. "You want answers? Fine. I fell in love with Nathan. He makes me happy. For the first time in 20 years, I actually want to wake up in the morning. That's it. That's the whole story." "That's the whole story." Sarah laughed, but it was hollow. "You fell in love with the father of your grandson, with the man The man you left?" Nathan interrupted. 7 years ago, with a 6-month-old baby. You don't get to claim me now, Sarah. You gave up that right. I'm not claiming you. I'm saying this is messed up, that you're both..." She looked between them, eyes bright with tears. "You're supposed to be my mother. And you're supposed to be... I don't know what you're supposed to be, but not this." Debarment. Claire's voice softened. "Sarah, I know this is hard to understand, but my life doesn't revolve around making you comfortable. I've spent too many years doing that, letting your choices dictate mine. I'm done." "So you're choosing him over me?" "I'm choosing myself. And yes, that includes Nathan. But this isn't about you, sweetheart. It never was." Sarah stared at her mother like she'd been slapped. Derek shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. "I can't believe this," Sarah whispered. "I can't. I need air." She walked out. Derek gave them an apologetic look and followed. Through the window, Nathan could see them standing by the car, Sarah gesturing wildly while Derek tried to calm her down. Claire sagged against the counter. "That went well?" "She'll come around, eventually." "Well, yes." "Will she?" "I'm not sure Sarah comes around to anything that isn't about her." Claire rubbed her face. "This is my daughter. I love her. But she's selfish and scared and convinced the world revolves around her pain. I don't know how to fix that." "You can't. She has to fix herself." They stood in the quiet kitchen, the ruins of Thanksgiving prep scattered around them. Nathan pulled Claire into his arms, held her while she shook with emotion she wouldn't let become tears. "I'm sorry. he said. For what? For making this harder. If I hadn't come to your door that night, then I'd still be miserable and alone and pretending that was enough. Claire pulled back to look at him. I don't regret any of this, Nathan, not 1 second. Even if Sarah never forgives me, even if this blows up in ways we can't control. I'd choose you again, even though I'm just a mechanic? Claire smiled. You're not just anything. You're the man who saw me when everyone else just saw what I could do for them. You're brave and honest and a wonderful father. You're everything I didn't know I needed. Nathan kissed her, slow and deep, pouring everything he felt into it. When they broke apart, Sarah was standing in the doorway again, watching them. I'm not staying for Thanksgiving, she said flatly. Derek and I are going back to the city, but I need to say something first. Nathan braced himself for more accusations, more anger. Instead, Sarah's voice was quiet. I was wrong about you, Nathan. When we were together, I thought you were simple, small town, not enough for the life I wanted. But watching you now, seeing how you stood up for yourself, for my mom, you're not simple. You're just honest in a way I never learned to be. She turned to Claire. And you terrified me my whole life, this perfect, powerful woman who seemed to do everything right. I spent years trying to either be you or be nothing like you. I never just tried to know you. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry for being a terrible daughter, for abandoning Tommy, for making everything about me when neither of you did anything wrong. Claire's eyes filled. Sarah, what? I'm not ready to be okay with this. I'm not ready to sit at Thanksgiving dinner and pretend it's normal. But maybe someday I can be, if you'll let me. Of course I'll let you. You're my daughter. I love you, even when you're selfish and scared and running from everything. Sarah laughed wetly. Takes one to know one. Fair enough. They didn't hug. Didn't suddenly become a perfect family. But something shifted in the room. Some acknowledgement that they were all messy, imperfect people trying to figure out how to live with the choices they'd made. Derek cleared his throat. We should go. Long drive back. Sarah nodded, started to leave, then turned back one more time. Nathan, take care of my mom. She pretends she doesn't need anyone, but she does. I will. And tell Tommy, tell him I'm sorry for not being there. I'll try to be better. You should tell him yourself when you're ready. Sarah nodded and left with Derek, the sound of their car fading into the November evening. Claire and Nathan stood in the kitchen surrounded by half-prepped food and the weight of everything that had just happened. Well, Claire said, guess it's just us for Thanksgiving. And Tommy, and Marcus and Diane if they want to come. A small, weird, completely imperfect Thanksgiving. Nathan smiled. My favorite kind. They spent Thanksgiving Day cooking together, Claire burning the rolls, Nathan rescuing them, both of them laughing over the chaos. Marcus, Diane, Emma, and Tommy arrived around 2. They ate too much, told terrible jokes, watched football they didn't care about. It was loud and messy and nothing like the polished dinners Claire used to host. It was perfect. After everyone left and Tommy was asleep on the couch from too much pie, Nathan and Claire sat on her back patio under the stars. The night was cold, clear, the kind of November evening that felt like possibility. I talked to a real estate agent, Claire said quietly, about selling this house. Nathan turned to look at her. You're selling? It's too big, too empty, too full of memories from a life I don't want anymore. She squeezed his hand. I'm thinking something smaller. Still nice, but homier? A place that feels like living instead of existing. That sounds good. Yeah? Claire looked at him, and Nathan saw hope and fear and vulnerability in her expression. Because I was thinking, maybe somewhere with a good school district, a backyard big enough for a 7-year-old who loves dinosaurs. Room for a family. Nathan's heart stopped. Claire, I'm not saying we rush anything. I'm just saying I want a future, Nathan, with you, with Tommy, building something real instead of just surviving in separate spaces and stealing moments when we can. I want that too. Nathan pulled her closer. I want it so much it scares me. Good. Being scared means it matters. They sat under the stars making plans and dreaming about futures that felt both impossible and inevitable. Nathan thought about the man he'd been 2 months ago, hollow, going through motions, convinced feeling anything was too dangerous. And he thought about who he was now, scared and hopeful and completely in love with a woman who'd cracked him open and reminded him what living actually meant. It hadn't been smooth, wouldn't be smooth going forward. Sarah's acceptance was fragile. The town would keep gossiping. There would be complications and challenges and moments where choosing this life felt too hard. But sitting there with Claire's hand in his, Nathan understood something fundamental. Happiness wasn't something you waited for permission to have. It wasn't something that came without risk or judgment or cost. It was something you chose. Every day. Even when people didn't understand. Even when it was scary. Even when it meant disappointing everyone except the people who actually mattered. Claire had chosen happiness. Had walked away from a legacy and a title and the expectations of everyone who thought they knew what was best for her. She'd chosen herself. Chosen them. Chosen the possibility of joy over the certainty of emptiness. And Nathan had chosen it too. Had stopped hiding behind numbness and routine. Had risked his heart on something real, even knowing it could break again. That was the thing about being human. About actually living instead of just existing. It required courage that most people never found. Required being willing to look foolish, to be judged, to fail spectacularly in front of everyone watching. But the alternative was worse. The alternative was spending your life performing for people who didn't matter while dying inside. The alternative was safety and emptiness and the slow erosion of everything that made you yourself. "I love you," Nathan said into the quiet. "I love you too." Claire leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you." "For what?" "For showing up at my door in the rain, showing up. For being honest when everyone else was just performing. For reminding me that it's never too late to choose differently. Thank you for letting me in. For seeing me when I'd forgotten how to see myself." They stayed there until the cold drove them inside, then checked on Tommy sleeping on the couch, surrounded by dinosaurs and contentment. This kid who deserved to see his father actually living, who deserved a family built on honesty and love instead of obligation and performance. Nathan carried Tommy to the car while Claire locked up. The drive back to town was quiet, peaceful, full of the kind of comfort that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. At home, Nathan tucked Tommy into bed and stood in the doorway watching his son sleep. Tomorrow, they'd wake up and keep building this life they'd chosen. There would be challenges. Sarah's fragile acceptance might crumble. The town might never fully accept them. Claire might have moments where she doubted giving up her empire. But they'd face it together, and that made all the difference. Nathan's phone buzzed. "Claire, home safe. Already missing you both. Miss you too. Tomorrow? Always tomorrow." Nathan smiled, put the phone down, and for the first time in 7 years, fell asleep not just without emptiness, but with something he'd thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Not the naive kind that believed everything would be perfect, but the hard-won kind that came from choosing joy despite knowing it could hurt. The kind that understood happiness wasn't about avoiding pain, but about deciding what you were willing to risk pain for. And Claire, complicated, brave, beautiful Claire who'd given up everything to choose herself, was worth risking everything for. Tomorrow they'd keep building, keep choosing, keep living. Tonight, that was enough.